Welcome to the studio.
Art,
music,
wine,
music,
spirit,
incredible,
love,
experience.
music.
Thank you for tuning into ARTSEES Diner Radio, the voice of ARTSEESDINER.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Thank you for joining ARTSEES Diner Radio Network, the voice of ARTSEESDINER.com. ARTSEES Diner Radio Network brings you musicians, artists, authors, thinkers, dreamers from all over the world. ARTSEES Diner is that special little virtual diner now going on its 6th year. Like a fine wine, it is getting better with time. So pull up a chair, grab that favorite beverage, sit back and enjoy the show. ARTSEES Diner, changing the world one song at a time, one heart at a time. And now, the host of our show. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to ARTSEES Diner Radio, and this is Mary E., one of the hosts of tonight's show. This is Midwest Monday episode, but we are spanning our wings, spreading our wings, and we're going to collect in an author that's from, of all places, Hawaii. A little bit of a distance there. But anyway, thank you for joining us on this wonderful Monday night, March the 3rd. Coming to you from Northwest Indiana, just a stone's throw away from frozen Lake Michigan. It has been a doozy of a winter here, and I don't know about the rest of you that are, well, some people get to live in Hawaii where it's nice and warm, and they don't quite understand what we're going through here with our sub-zero temperatures and snow up to, well, it's deep, what can I say? But tonight's show is going to be a really, really exciting show. So, you know, cuddle up, grab your favorite libation or coffee or hot chocolate, whatever it happens to be. And, you know, I'll bring, as soon as Diane calls in here, I'll bring her on the air. But in the meantime, just going to give you a little bit of background, catch up to what's going on in the local area. And then we're going to get deep into conspiracy. Yes, I know you find it hard to believe that Mary E. would be talking about conspiracy. No, are you kidding me? I love the idea, and I believe there's always more than meets the eye. So this is going to be exciting. I've looked forward to talking with our guest for a number of months now, and so tonight is the night, and I will bring A.K. Kuykendall on the air in a very short minute. But first, a little update. Coming up this Friday night is First Friday here in Michigan City, Indiana, and for those of you who maybe stumble upon this interview, you know, years from now, no, it won't be that long now, months from now, you will know that the first Friday of every month there are things happening in downtown Michigan City, which is where I'm from. And Diane is on the air now, so as soon as I'm done talking about this first Friday, I'll bring her on the air and find out if there's, you know, anything in particular going on and in the Keyland area or Chicagoland. But also I wanted to let you know that this Friday night kicks off the SHE. You know, it is a celebration of women in image and form, and the Southern Shore Art Association will be hosting this month-long event. And Friday night is the opening reception, and I'm very excited that I have 3 paintings that will be a part of this exhibit. 3 of them, 2 of them are based off of poems that I wrote and published a year ago in my Flower and Stone book. But the 3 paintings, 1, She Walks the Street Alone, Eve 2, and The Room is Empty. So I'm very excited about those. So if you happen to be around in the area, stop in. You'll be able to see all of the various artwork and even purchase it if you're so inclined. But that's this Friday night at the Southern Shore Art Association building on North Franklin Street here in Michigan City, Indiana. Very excited about it, and I will have the information posted on ARTSEES Diner blog. And I'm going to bring Diane on the air because it's been a whole week since I've talked to my friend. Hello, Diane.
Hi, Mary. How are you this evening?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Good. Are you cold?
Actually, not at the moment. I covered myself up with the blanket.
Yeah, isn't this great?
I'm up in my art studio up here, and I felt like I was coming down with a little cold. So you know how you kind of get kind of chilly when when you kind of feel like you're coming down.
I do.
So I covered myself up with the blanket while I was up here.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about tonight's show. I know you and I have been kind of bantering back and forth this week, and I've been introducing you and letting you get to know a little bit more about our guest, A.K. Kuykendall. And I'm so excited because, I've listened to a couple of interviews. I think you have as well, and read a couple. So we've gotten a little bit of an insight into the mind of this man. And, I'm just excited, and I just want to kind of go over the biography with our listening audience, so that we can get him on the air, because I think he's going to be reading to us from his book, and then we will be able to really dive in and talk about, his background and his research into the conspiracy theories, and there's just so much to talk about. But he is a dedicated husband and a father of 3. He was born in Albany, Georgia, and grew up as a military brat on the Kaneohe Bay, I probably said that wrong, Marine Corps Base in Hawaii, located in Kailua Kona, Hawaii, and later at the Camp Lejeune Marine Corps Base located in Jacksonville, North Carolina. This is a smart man. He follows the sun. He goes where it's warm.
Yeah, where it's warm.
Definitely. But he's a corporate executive chef by trade. He's perfect for the show. His true passion in life is writing thought-provoking novels that blends the concepts of fact and fiction. Conspiracy, espionage, horror, suspense, literature are particular favorites. He has an infectious love of bringing women to the surface. He also belongs on this show. In his literature, where so many men and or women authors fall short. This is why Mr. Kuykendall prides himself on writing stories with women as his protagonists. And we're going to talk to him about why women in particular. I look forward to hearing his perspective on it. And I also look forward to talking to him about his role as, kind of moving away from what would be stereotypically thought of in an African-American writer. We often think of, well, we don't really get to see much. There's a newer explosion, but it's so slow in coming. So I look forward to talking to him about his perspective on, navigating through the, all of the different whatever. We'll find out. I don't even know what those whatevers are, but I know what they are, but they're not they're not coming to the front. So anyway, I'm not gonna blather on anymore here, and I look forward to bringing our guest on the air. So let's give a warm welcome to A.K. Kuykendall. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can actually, and I have my co-host Diane Blanchette is on the air as well.
Hello, sir. Nice to talk to you.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Keeping warm.
My pleasure. Oh, yeah.
Wow,
cold here.
It is. We're in the Midwest is not the hottest place to be right now, but I'm sure you're enjoying your Hawaii weather, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you are, I came across you and your work. I don't even remember now how or when, but some people just cross our paths and we want to know more about it. And unfortunately, we didn't get to talk a few months ago. And so this is really very exciting. And I'm looking forward to, letting you just embrace our audience with your words and your insights. And before we get into, I know you're going to do some reading for us tonight. And then that will just drive even more questions and answers. But I want to just kind of back up a little bit and find out when did it strike you that you could impact people with a written word?
Well, that's a kind of a loaded question, but I'll attempt. I've always been like a rabid movie buff and a like a bibliophile that just loves the concept of reading and whatnot. And I love storytellers, people that can take you out of the world that you were born into and take you to a whole other world, whether it's fantasy, or anything else. Like Superman has been my favorite superhero all my life. And Jules Gabriel Verne's A Journey to the Center of the Earth has been one of my favorite novels of all time. That's just me. My mind's always been in the clouds to the point where my mother, rarely slapped me in the back of my head when I was younger. Tell me to snap out of it, like Cher did on Moonstruck to Nicolas Cage. So I've always had my mind in the clouds in some way, shape, or form, and I just knew one day I was something. I was going to be a storyteller in some way, shape, or form. But I wanted to approach the written word like Orson Welles did in his the way he affected people in the town when his radio program came on of the War of the Worlds. The type of impact I've always wanted my work to have, making people think completely outside the box or realize the world that they've actually been living in all along. So that's in a nutshell.
Wow, very, very cool. And so how did being in a military brat kind of contribute to that sense of getting lost in the word, getting lost in the books?
Well, being a military brat, you have either one or two options. You either rebel against the authority or you pretty much fall in line with the authority. I found myself falling in line more so with the authority and the structure of it, just like when I have my children now. I raised them with the yes sir, no sir, yes ma'ams, no ma'ams. Just that basic structure of the military, even though I would not ever enlist based on my research and what I know of the military and what they do to our boys and what they've been doing to our boys, not only the individual that signed that contract, but also the populace, the civilian populace, such as yourself and me.
Yeah.
So I would never enlist, but I'm more so like an advocate for women's rights and like a covert advocate for women's rights as well as a covert advocate for our soldiers. That are thinking that they're doing a noble thing, which in essence it is a noble thing, but they're being used. Because the fine line that they sign on to, they don't realize their life is completely over. Your lives literally belong to the corporation you just signed on to, and you think you're doing a patriotic thing when they're pretty much just using you. They can do anything to your person that they deem is in the realm of national security, and that's where it gets scary. So ultimately, I'm more so of an advocate for women's rights as well as our soldiers' rights and human rights in general. When it comes to women, basically with this whole rape in the military and all this other stuff going on, that's been going on for decades. And when the laws were passed and they released women, to be able to serve in combat, so they're able to rise in the rankings like any other male would do. Pretty much it just was like a culture shock to the military. And men, basically the inherent sexism by men is coming out in the macho vein of the military-industrial complex. And that's something that's very disheartening and it's something I would like to speak to in some way, shape, or form through my writings.
I see. Well, it's really interesting because I didn't really know how passionate you were about the military, and I have to agree with you just in basically what I've been seeing and what I've been studying for a long time, and I don't think that we have begun to lose sight of what the purpose is and what it's about, and and it does need to be addressed in a direct way, but also in a way that can just get people thinking. And that's one of the beautiful things about fiction, is that oftentimes it really does open our eyes to question and to look a little bit deeper, go between the lines, if you will. And it's interesting that you say that you are, that you really support women's rights, because there are very, very few men who understand or get it. And I believe I shared with you that one of my major research pieces was W.E.B. Du Bois. And the reason that I was drawn to him was I was doing a literary analysis on Mrs. Warren's Professions, a book by Shaw. And in it was, it was highlighting the way women have been treated for centuries. It's no news, that's nothing new. But as I started digging deeper and asking the question, why did it take so long for women to get the right to vote? And, we all know about it, we all talk about it, but why? Why? How was that abandoned? And it led me to Du Bois. And he at one time was signed on and was equally aligned with women's rights. And it was such a huge thing, if you will, that he had to remove himself from that fight in order to gain what was the most important, the prevalent, I guess you could say, issue, the most heinous issue. And, so it's been very, very interesting. And embedded in all of that are conspiracies. And it's what drives us to ask more questions and to move forward. But so often we find ourselves encouraging sheeple attitudes as opposed to asking the questions. And I find that just in exploring you and your work, that you are trying to bring out and almost empower people away from being sheeple. Do you find that is some of your that there's a degree of impetus in that?
Yes. It's actually systematic if you think about it. I look at myself as being a part of a secret society in a sense. This secret society is very real, and it has to do with the pen. So it's like the secret society which I'm talking about is one that uses the concept of alternative history to slowly awaken the masses to the covert doings of individuals of this world and beyond. I believe it's a weapon stronger than you may think, because one cannot save a world nestled in a box. Basically, writers such as myself, producers, film directors, etc., have been doing this for years, if you just think about it, preparing the masses for the inevitable. Like I alluded to before, Rod Serling's 1959 to 1964 series, The Twilight Zone, it got us thinking. Yes. Mercury Theater's October 30th, 1938 broadcast of The War of the Worlds, that got us thinking. All these things got us thinking, to the point where I believe the only way I can approach the written word is to try to have an impact other than just an entertainment value for my audience. I wanted to do something on a grander scale. So in a sense, without signing on a dotted line or signing a contract, I actually joined this secret society without knowing it.
Wow. Yeah, well, I am even more intrigued now. I think that the depth of what you bring to the readers and to our listeners is far greater than we can even begin to touch on in a 60-minute show. But what I would like you to do, I know you were planning on reading for us something, and if you'd like to go ahead and begin on that, I would love to hear what you've written.
Okay, it's rather in depth. So I just want you guys, the audience, yourselves, just sit back and relax and listen. I'm just basically going to give you the overall arc of the series itself. basis for the series, not necessarily mentioning my protagonist, Callista Flocker, which is pretty much a badass. You can't beat her to say, she's better and she's better than any man you could shake a stick at. But in a sense, I hope I don't get killed by my wife.
Sounds like you, Diane.
Yeah, I know. So bad. My wife's probably gonna slap me in the back of my head like my mama did. But in a sense, I write the attractions that I have for powerful, strong women. I write about, and in a sense, she's my fantasy. In a sense, because basically, I don't think any women should be held back from, let's say, the special forces, the Rangers, the SEALs, the Green Berets. They shouldn't be held back for anything, but they are. So basically, just to let you know, she's that bad. She's actually a leader. Leader, Captain Callista Flocker of a Ranger SEAL combat unit. She actually is a Ranger, Army Ranger. But I digress. For starters, I wanna thank both the host of ARTSEES Diner Radio and their audience for the platform you've given me to express my artistic passions for literature, theory, and truth, so often lost in our fast-moving world where words are abundant but easily drowned out by what I believe to be a strategic noise. This noise is what prevents our seeing the matrix for what it truly is, and which is our reality. All right. Back then and to this very day, we, the people of African descent, have been continually marginalized, dismissed outright, all because of our beautiful complexions. This marginalization and dismissiveness was like a reinforced shield, a heavily fortified protective barrier for us, which for generations has held steady. The many books on President John F. Kennedy, his assassination, Warren Commission, Garrison investigation, to the books chronicling the plethora of eyewitness deaths, omits the many African-American witnesses who, too, were fortunate to have hand-me-down cameras and video recording machines in 1963. Our government, like the plague, rained down on numerous European-American service members to civilians in their ongoing efforts at covering up all that happened that day in Dallas, while African-Americans in all of Camelot, who witnessed in great detail a United States president, one who spoke to their societal qualms, slain in broad daylight. That gumption, that evil, that unfettered display of unfettered power, bold and unapologetic, seen by we the people of African descent, triggered an instinctive reaction to quickly disperse, to store away their recordings, photographs, and their memories of all that took place that day, and more importantly, to never, ever speak on President John F. Kennedy's slaying. My great-grandfather, may he rest in peace, told me on many occasions that upon the fall of Camelot, we the people of African descent were never as safe in this country as we were on that bloody day in 1963 Dallas and after the fact concerning JFK's murder. He'd go on to say, I saw a child with a rifle in a storm drain, true story, on Elm Street. I have a photo of the kid. He was a white child, but black sewage sludge coated his face.
Wow.
But his eyes and features were unmistakably that of a child. As a young man and a United States Marine Corps brat, for the better part of my existence, I grew up with the smell of fatigues which lingered about the many bases my family and I both visited and resided, the pungent aroma trailing me as I made my way through life. Along with my cravings bordering on the obsessive for ready-to-eat military-stock meals, I was able to appreciate the military's code of conduct. On the other side of the coin, and through my I was especially diligent in historic readings, literature of all genres, and with the media goings-on in the world, all witnessed from an obscure perch I dubbed Fort Kuykendall. As the days in my life ticked by and as history played itself out before my eyes, I continued to find myself at a loss for words in reflection of the many tempestuous global occurrences. There was entirely too much upheaval in the world, and I couldn't get my head around it all. This is when I decided to prioritize, and I allowed my passions to take hold. And though I was born 11 years after his assassination, the late John F. Kennedy became my focus, and with this came a torrent of mysterious doors I instinctively knew neither I nor anyone else was to open. In reflection of my time as a military witnessing the repeat deployments on behalf of our nation. What I had discovered, I was then and am to this very day floored by the rampant political corruption that has covertly reduced our American soldiers to blind offenders and lambs for the slaughter. In searching for answers through an extensive research process, a highly complex picture began to emerge with both eerie and true-to-life connections. And in my desperate need to make sense of it all, I pushed on, exhaustively researching every angle that emerged, and then I made a connection that at first even I could hardly believe. I discovered the true meaning behind former President Dwight David Eisenhower's January 17, 1961 farewell address to the nation. By playing on the complexities within my own research, I decided to use the very same historical information that led to his discovery to present a plausible backdrop, and Conspirator's Odyssey was born. As it is written in Wikipedia, a conspiracy theory explains an event as being the result of an alleged plot by a covert group or organization, or more broadly, the idea that important political, social, or economic events are the products of secret plots that are largely unknown to the general public. And so I chose to present my story in the trend of the Illuminatus trilogy. I made it a point to paint an all too believable picture of interconnecting, power-hungry, conspiratorial madmen who essentially run the nation behind the scenes. But while Illuminatus is scatterbrained and nearly impossible for the average reader to follow, Conspirator's Odyssey gradually blossoms to reveal each new layer and fold at just the right pace. History, as it is written, is rather convoluted. The sheer weight of the world's words endlessly drowned in a sea of well-placed, strategically balanced, yet beautiful lore. As a self-described historian, objectivity is a necessity and definitely warranted with such studies. But as an author of questionable fiction who wanders the grandiloquence of history's many gateways, I've always fancied the rim of the steepest literary precipice. There is no debating the long and unfortunate line of national and international martyrs whose names and actions will forever live on throughout the many pages of world history, and through those rare but inquisitive wild-eyed youths who are truly riveted by the many stories of old. Stories that make up only a fraction of humanity's tumultuous history, when the truths behind what we believe to be fact are but cleverly disguised mirages. From my perspective, one of these martyrs happens to have a grand story both in his lifetime and post his untimely demise. One whose overwhelming impact on American history happens to tug at me with such vengeance is our late President John F. Kennedy. From my exhaustive studies in world history, there's no question in my mind that history is a rather convoluted thing as it is recorded, for you see, it all unraveled on the evening of July 3rd, 1947, in the tiny town of Roswell, New Mexico, when a respected business owner, Dan Wilmot, and his wife were simply relaxing on their front porch. It was on this evening when they witnessed a bright saucer-shaped object with glowing lights move across the cloudy sky at an undeterminable rate of speed. The next day, a tremendous amount of unearthly debris was discovered in the area. That night proved to be infamous and would later come to be known the world over as the Roswell UFO crash incident. Dwight David Eisenhower's farewell address to the nation on January 17, 1961, was not only purposeful, it was a cunningly cloaked one as to not infringe on the presidential oaths or divulge the many secrets he, as with all presidents, was bound. Eisenhower's address was directly related to the Roswell incident because of what took place in the days that followed. Having succeeded Truman for the presidency and having read his predecessor's notes in the Presidential Book of Secrets, Eisenhower was fully aware of the meeting Truman had with Evie and was in line with Truman's initial precautions given what transpired that evening. Fully aware of the evolving military trajectory of classification Falcon Sweep, and due to what was surmised of the military and technically advanced intel that came of their research, Eisenhower watched as this once noble endeavor manifested into a diabolical plot with many thorns. Those thorns were so deeply embedded within the tactical arms divisions of our nation that not even the power of the presidency could stop it. One thorn was codenamed the Animan Project, an unsanctioned experiment aimed at developing a superhuman armed force using the men and women of our armed forces. And so it was that Eisenhower's farewell address to our nation was as succinct as it was bold in its delivery, a targeted warning to all Americans and the peoples of the world when he stated in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. With President Eisenhower's address seeming to fall upon deaf ears, maybe because of the unusual heaviness of his words at that particular time in history, the strategic military experimentations that took place after the Roswell incident existed and persisted without pause and ultimately led to the November 22, 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Behind the assassination lay a vast conspiracy well hidden within the complexity of a massive bureaucratic spiderweb that we the people have come to believe and accept when in fact Project Animan was the mainspring of our president's demise. This is what happened, and I know that this will be an extremely hard pill to swallow, but it must be told. Project Animan reached and evolved a testing phase and needed a war. Vietnam was that war. Kennedy was simply in the way. Jim Marrs, author of the critically acclaimed book Crossfire, published in 1989, made one of the most important statements ever written concerning the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, which I believe all of you should take into consideration when it comes to my story. Do not trust this book. In fact, when it comes to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, don't trust any one source or even the basic evidence and testimony. In the case of the John F. Kennedy assassination, belief and trust have long been a part of the problem. As a pragmatic author of fact-based fiction, and in order to protect my life and the lives of my family, I present the totality of what I've discovered not only through the covert counsel of my anonymous source and an extremely rigorous research process, but in a fashion that demonstrates the unfettered draw of speculative fiction. Simply put, I present my story as a warning wrapped in a lie in order to tell you the truth. Mark Twain may have been writing about this very project of mine when he wrote that truth is stranger than fiction because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth isn't. Ladies and gentlemen, the debate over what's true and what's false in literature is never ending, primarily due to the fact that all literature is based on some truth. Like that of a surreptitious military operator, the goal of argumentative writing is to tactically persuade your audience that your idea is valid beyond the method by which you've chosen to relay your story. The Greek philosopher Aristotle divided the means of persuasion appeals into three distinct categories: ethos, pathos, logos. Examples of this are infinite. Leonardo da Vinci's Codex Atlanticus, George Orwell's 1984, Milton William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse, Jack Finney's The Body Snatchers, David Seltzer's The Omen, H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, Thomas Michael Kinley's Schindler's Ark, William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, Richard Condon's The Manchurian Candidate, Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson's The Illuminatus Trilogy, Robert Ludlum's The Bourne Identity, Robert A. Hyland's The Puppet Masters, Jules Gabriel Verne's A Journey to the Center of the Earth, Eric von Dyken's Chariots of the Gods, not to mention both the Writer's Block Trilogy and the Conspirator's Odyssey series, to which I'm taking the liberty of weighing in. However unquestionably interminable these examples may be, all remain but the tiniest of pebbles dropped haphazardly into a massive basin of still water. Words I liken to keys which unlock the incomprehensible doors of the matrix we were conceived. However, it is a choice the individual must make to read, to absorb, to beware, and to prepare. Don't be misled and or hindered by the industrial captions that arbitrarily label authors' work, i.e. fiction, nonfiction, etc. These labels are presented to authors and their readers by the publishing conglomerate as a means of categorizing, marketing, and covertly trivializing their contracted mules. They, in fact, have always been the sluice by which our agenda thrives. Throughout time, many creative minds have meticulously used the superlative dominance of literature to slowly awaken the masses to the covert doing of individuals of this world and beyond. Again, it's an art form stronger than you may think, for one cannot save a world nestled in a box strategically dormant to the realities of their existence. by exposing the masses to narratives once thought to have been pulled from midair was actually meant to help soften the blow felt when the world's dirty laundry could no longer be contained. Thank you for hearing my words, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Really?
I'm
Awesome.
wow. I know. My head is just racing now, and there are so many things that you've touched on that have me. We've only begun to scratch the surface in some of our meanderings through this idea of conspiracy, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow at an exponential rate. And there are so many things that I have questions about, and so one of the I can't even begin to, I don't even know where to start, except that you mentioned that you have a source who is providing you with information that others obviously do not have access to. And the one thing I have to say is I don't understand why it's so hard for people to accept the fact that there might be something more going on. I stop and I think about my own family history. I just found out recently that my great grandfather was a Cherokee Indian chief. Why was that not a part of my upbringing and my history? Well, it's very obvious, because so much has been hidden and buried. You were not allowed to talk about it. You don't allow you definitely don't claim certain things. If I can find this out at the age of 53, something that is a couple hundred years old, then why is it so hard for us to imagine that with the technology and the research capabilities and this, everything that's going on around us, that there is not possibly something more? And that's one thing I often tell people. They used to encourage women to smoke when they were pregnant, too, and they said it was good for the baby. And now look what we've discovered since that time. But the thing that I'm really intrigued about, that when you first started talking about, was the role of African Americans in the assassination. And you're right. First of all, I'm missing something in there. So there was no credibility given to any of the African American witnesses. Am I correct in stating?
No. At that time, in the 60s, it was we were already going through hell.
Right.
We weren't a threat. We weren't a threat to white America. We weren't a threat. So basically, even if we were a key witness, even if my African Americans were a key witness to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, we weren't going to say anything anyway. We were already, scared to death. We were already, oppressed in so many ways. The government didn't fear us at all, and they wouldn't even dare try to make an African American the assassin, because we were supposedly not, as intelligent to be able to do something like that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So pretty much we got shunned in so many different ways. So, because that would have been an easy scapegoat, but they would have known that, everybody would have known that was a conspiracy. There ain't no way, African American have some authority to be able to do something like that, and pretty much America couldn't put a blight on their record to having African American people that are oppressed actually kill the commander in chief. That would pretty much be crazy. But yeah, I can't go into great detail. There's so many holes in my story that you have to wonder where I get this motivation from or where this story comes from. Remember I tell you I write fact-based fiction, but I write fact-based fiction for a specific reason, because if I expose the fact that this is all true, I mentioned in my story that I write the way I write, especially when it comes down to the concept of Kennedy and the conspiracies entwined, basically to protect my life and the lives of my family.
Exactly.
And no one can tell me that that in all the radio broadcasts I've done, I got cut off. At this particular time, about 15 minutes ago, I would have been cut off a long time ago in other radio programs. But for some reason, they're allowing me to keep going, because my internet and phone lines would actually just die out of nowhere. But
Interesting.
there's a lot of holes in what I'm doing, but I'm what you call a descendant of an African American witness to the assassination of John F. Kennedy. But
you
the
are.
details of that, yes, very much so. I told you I write fact-based fiction. The percentage either way, I will never tell. It's up to you and the audience to figure that out. I can never tell, for my own safety, but I am a descendant of an African-American witness to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. And if you look at my Facebook page where this Odyssey book is being highlighted, and if you go down all my posts, you probably find some little tidbit, little nugget that would talk about African-American witnesses that were there. They were never questioned for the Warren Commission. There's a lot of little tidbits there, but I can never go into detail because it would point fingers at certain members of my family, and I will have Secret Service, FBI, swarming my family and even swarming me, trying to find out what do I have.
What do you have? What do you know?
I'm telling you, everyone, yes, ma'am, everyone you got to realize that for over 50 years, we've been focused on, when it comes down to John F. Kennedy's assassination, we've been focused on the who, what, when, where, and how. But there's one thing that was missing from that. No one, and I mean no one for over 50 years, is really focused on the why.
Right.
My research, and my in-depth research, a very exhaustive research, has drawn me to a conclusion there was a connection between Roswell, New Mexico, the experiments that took place after the fact. I'm talking about some vast experiments that took place after the fact. The goal of having the ultimate weapon, which is a super soldier, in Vietnam. Basically, Kennedy was simply just in the way of Vietnam. He was just in the way. They had to get him out of the way. And he worked a deal with Lyndon B. Johnson. Because Lyndon B. Johnson forged ahead with that war.
Yeah.
But Kennedy was not going to. But in order to test the weapon, the scientist within the industrial complex, they forge ahead with all these experiments that they have. You can, and if you're thinking I'm some kind of nut or a kook for the audience, just think about chemtrails. Think about the weird smells that you smell when you're walking outside. Seeing the planes up in the sky and all this exhaust is coming off those planes. That's what chemtrails. They're actually experimenting on you, because you got to think about this. Animal testing tells scientists but so much.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about that big picture.
Right.
Well, and I know
So
I've been noticing that. Yeah, I've been noticing, and I've been saying for a number of years now, and I'm always told that I'm the loon bird, because I'm like, I have never seen clouds like this before. I have never seen storms come in like this before. There's something going on. There's something that's changing. And, the one thing that I'm very much aware of HAARP. And, I've been very intrigued by that. And I know Diane and, her husband has shared with her with some things that he's come across. But, to me, I can't help but think that there is something going on with these random acts of violence. Violence in a way that is not at all in keeping with human nature anywhere in the world. And there's just way too many things that are not connected and don't make sense. And so whether it's the pharmaceutical companies that are testing with it, and then I can even go into this whole concept of education. All of our education is now being mandated by somebody who's created Microsoft, and you're going, where is all this going, and why is this happening, and why are we continuing to just let it happen? And
would you believe it's all connected?
I would believe that.
I can tell you it's all connected. The American people have been experimenting on forever. You think it's just limited to the military? No, it's not. It expands beyond that. The connections that I make in my work are very vast, and it stretches out all the way to through Truman, Delano Roosevelt, It goes far when it comes down to the connections, and we're being experimented on, just like the Food and Drug Administration, just like Matthew McConaughey just won the Oscar last night for his role that he played, when he had AIDS, and he can get drugs that actually are working in another country. But why didn't the FDA approve them for America? All of it is all connected to money, power, and a bureaucracy. Most people think that we are living in a democracy, when I'm letting you and your audience know that you're not living in a democracy. You never have been, you never will be, and that's the power of the matrix. You're actually living in a bureaucracy, because a democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people, and that's about a bunch of crap. This is actually a bureaucracy, and a bureaucracy, by definition, is a country ran by the unelected. There's behind the people that supposedly vote into office that actually control this nation.
Yeah.
But the people, the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency has nothing but highly paid, very well-paid targets that we, the people, can argue and fuss at when things are not going right in our world. That's all they are. They're well-paid stooges in front of the bureaucracy that actually controls this nation.
Yeah.
So we are being experimented on. We are being experimented on.
Well, and I've come to understand that, and they're just my research in education. As an educator, I keep saying follow the money. There's only one primary entity that's continuing to make a lot of money in education, and that is the publishing companies, and that's completely illogical considering that we've now, have computers and internet, and it is actually more to do with the fact that they found a way to guarantee that they would have a regular, on average, 50% profit increase every year since 1985. And the leader happens to also own Standards & Poor's. It's called McGraw-Hill. And they are the ones who created the California Achievement Test, and it's across the nation. And so, there are certain things that we start talking about, racism, bureaucratic racism. And, you think about the very first testing that was done, widespread testing in 1973, 1974, and they looked at children from across the nation. And they began to compare at that time African-American boys and Caucasian boys. And they also threw in Hispanic in there, too. And there was a disparity in the reading scores. And with all of the money and all of the standardized testing and every single thing that has been dumped into education, that divide has not changed. But in the meantime, the cost of educating it's massive. It's huge, just since even No Child Left Behind. All the money, but what is it doing? It's also forcing it's a form of segregation. It's continuing to perpetrate a lie, a belief, and nobody wants to come out and say what it is, but it's being done. And why? Well, because, again, it's a form of manipulation, control, testing. How far can we push people? How far can, and I don't know what all of the ifs, ands, and buts are about it. But all I can say, and it's like what you had touched on it, if you want to know what's going on, or if you want to know that there's something going on, follow the money trail. And there you will find your perpetrators the majority of the time.
Yeah.
And so how does all of this stuff play together? Well, we're beginning to lose ground. And, we have an entire generation that is still, for the first time in the history of humankind, are still living with parents at the age of 26 and 27 and still on their insurance and still living at home, even though they're highly educated college students. How is this possible? How does it play into this whole concept of sheeple? And convincing the masses that, there's these people over here and they're just a bunch of loon birds who ramble on and they have all their theories, but this is what really matters. Just pull out your iPod or pull out your Apple, because that's really the only thing that matters. And I know I've gone off my tangent.
I look at people and just say it's just dancing. I look at people and just say that when they have their headphones on, I always say a phrase about it. I just say, they're still dancing. So it's like they're not paying attention because it's actually systematically, ingrained in them not to pay attention to what's going on around them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, and I see it more and more and more. And, we are, as an educator, I'm watching what's happening with my students. And, if there was ever, there's a lot of people out there, so don't get me wrong, anybody who's listening, there's a lot of educators out there who, put their life on the line. And I don't mean they're in danger of being injured, but I mean their livelihoods, their futures, to go with the same approach and passion and belief system of those who are being brought in, who are being encouraged to fight for life liberty. We are led to believe that we can change the way things are, that we have, by being a really smart person and somebody who can really educate, that somehow or another we're going to be listened to, and that we can actually impact and change on a grand scale. And, so it's, how do we, I understand what you're doing in your writing. Your passion is to awaken your readers through a means by which most people function, which is a fictional level. Very few people are going to watch documentaries over, some reality show from New Jersey. You are not going to tune into a documentary. We're going to be more prone to watching that. And as long as we keep on making everybody look over there, they're not going to look at what's going on right in front of them. It's the oldest trick in the book.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing as nonfiction, or what they call nonfiction. And it's like all these politicians are writing all these books, and that they become #1 bestsellers overnight. No, we're not buying those books, and they know we're not buying those books. That's just a covert way of money laundering. That's just a covert way of money laundering.
Yeah, you're right. Wow.
Never thought of it that way.
That's very much. That's all it is, because basically those people that can't, according to the laws and the campaign finance laws or whatever, they can't do certain things. So you got to go back to the whole situation of there's more than one way to skin a cat. So let me just supposedly write this book, and it's supposed to be the #1 book out there. I don't know anyone that reads it. I don't know anyone.
Exactly.
That's true.
Well,
but it's the #1 bestseller.
Well, and I want to just ask you, because we've only got a couple more minutes. Gosh, why didn't I make this show 3 hours long? But
yeah.
But you're going to have to come back and join us again.
Yes.
But this is my question of maybe the night, maybe the century. It has little to do with conspiracy. However, you're talking about these overnight bestsellers, and you're going, wait a minute, most bookstores are closing down across the United States. How could there be a bestseller overnight? But anyway, but then we think about, the media, and I know that you are very pro-woman, and you believe in strong women, and what I'm about to say is not to in any way, shape, or form minimize the greatness of Beyonce. She's a talented woman. She's paid her dues. She works hard. But I want to know how it's possible that her YouTube video of her new song already has 102 million views. And what are we doing that we could drive that's just one of the masses of the many artists out there and movies and everything else, that we can promote this and it can become 102 million. What is that? What conspiracy is behind that? Is there one?
I can tell you flat out. It's the power of marketing, and it's the power of deep pockets. You got to think about it. YouTube, of course, there's going to be a lot of people fans of her or whatever. But think about YouTube. YouTube is a system on the internet, right?
Right.
So it's pretty much just it's nothing encrypted. It's nothing but code. It's nothing but code. We all know 1 and 1 makes 2, and if you just switch on the code, what happens to the number that we all see?
Right, exactly. Okay.
Basically, there's money and power behind it, and if you are a corporation, you can manipulate the masses into believing whatever you want them to believe. Just because we see that number, 100 million, billion people have seen this, how do we know that's actually true?
We don't. And
we don't know that. We don't know if that's actually true.
We don't.
Because some kid's going to go in there with a code that actually works at the corporation known as you, going to write that code in there and give her whatever they want to give her if she's got the deep enough pockets to pay them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They'll keep that secret confidential.
Of course, because, that's something that has become more and more pervasive in our society are these when you join in, it's like, oh, and by the way, if you dare ever, reveal any of this, we will make sure that you never, ever work anywhere again. And you know what? It happens. It happens.
They even pass laws. that they're saying that there's no such thing as aliens. There's no such thing as UFOs. But why are you passing a law saying if anything came from another planet, if you've seen a spaceship, by law, it's a federal crime for you to even go anywhere near it. Why are you passing a law if there's no such thing as aliens and there's no such thing as UFOs? But our governments are passing laws. Federal governments passed a law that prevents any American from even approaching a ship that we might see or being inquisitive. Why you pass a law on something that you just said it was no such thing on? They passing laws. And before we get off the air, you talked about the racism and the ingrained racism and whatnot. I can tell you this flat out: sexism, racism, and prejudice have never disappeared in American society. It's just covertly hidden. And now the slave masters are they got their foot on the neck of all the masses because they lost control of a portion of the masses. Yeah. So therefore, they got their foot on the neck. And you ever notice that the Congress and the presidency, there's only a few of them when there's millions and millions of us. But we're the ones that's supposed to put them in office to speak on our behalf. And when they don't speak on our behalf, and they're speaking on the behalf of the people with the bigger pockets than we do, I might have $1, you might have $1, and every other person in the masses part of the population has $1. But if you have the 1% and they got dollars that exceed our $1, they actually have the control. The bureaucracy of the 1%, they actually have the control. So you're wondering why they don't listen to polls. People don't listen to polls. People don't listen to the will of the people because we don't have no say-so because it's not a democracy. Again, I allude to it's a bureaucracy. We have no control because even if it's right, they won't do it. And then they have some kind of excuse. And you ever notice the power of money? Because even though we know these politicians are worth nothing, all of them are worth nothing, yet and still when election time comes around, we're the first ones to go to vote our interests, vote our conscience, and the only thing we're doing is literally being bought. You ever notice how much money they're putting into these campaigns?
It is disgusting.
They're putting all these subliminal messages on the air, on commercials and whatnot, putting money into our communities, having rallies where you have free crackers and some soda pop. Get all that crap. They're manipulating you for their vote because once that vote goes through, it don't mean anything to them. And their special interests are more important than we are. And welcome to our world.
Well, it has been a very, very interesting 60 minutes, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future. I encourage all of our listeners to check out AK's website. It's accessible through today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to continuing on the conversation in the very near future. Diane, once again, thank you so much for being there. I can't help but feel that you're right here at my dining room table. All my best to you, and I'll see you again next Monday. Right, Diane?
All right.
Thank you so much, AK, for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
You have a wonderful, wonderful night.
You guys as well.
Wow, Diane, this time has flown by. It has.
It really did.
It has, and we've got
so
60 seconds to close down the show. It has been wonderful, and I will talk to you again very, very soon. Please. Good night. Check out AK Kuykendall's work. Incredible writer, incredible man, outspoken individual. We need to have far more. gentlemen like A.K. Kuykendall out there fighting for us and waking us up. Until we talk again, thank you for joining ARTSEES Diner Radio.
Thank you for stopping by ARTSEES Diner Radio, the voice of ARTSEESDiner.com. ARTSEES Diner Radio is an ARTSEES production. Champaign and La Luna production team featuring creator, executive producer Mary E. La Luna, and Steve Champaign, producer, sound engineer, and artistic contributor.